My husband's best friend, female, got the news of her dog's cancer 8 days ago. My husband will call her every day till yesterday when she visited. I opened the door for her, greeted her, then led her to the living room and went into the kitchen to get a glass of water after my husband asked me to. I came back and didn't find them in the living room. Turns out they went into the guest room and the door was shut. I heard weeping, sobbing sounds coming from the other side. I knocked, then got in and found them embracing each other, crying. I stood by the door, but my husband paused and told me to give them a moment. I gotta say that I did not feel comfortable with this request, so I remained standing. He got up and started repeatedly telling me to get out. I told him it's my house and he can't tell me where I can and can't stay. I told him that they did not need to shut the door for any reason, no matter what it was. We argued and she ended up leaving. He blew up at me afterwards, calling me unbelievable, saying that I had no respect for him and his friend who's going through a hard time and refusing to give him privacy. I told him how weird it was for them to shut the door just because they were crying. He told me that I was petty and overbearing to act like this in front of her and stopping him from showing proper support. Now he's completely gone radio silent and is acting like I kicked her out or treated her poorly. My sister moved in with me and my husband days ago after her divorce was finalized, then lost her job. We're mostly in the agreement about everything, except I've been kind of having an issue with what she wears, especially at nighttime. She usually wears silky nightwear. Not just that, but she'd come out of her room dressing like that to grab water or use the bathroom. While yes, it was just me who saw her dress like that, I honestly could not risk having an argument with my husband over it. Last night I saw her in the kitchen grabbing something from the fridge and was dressed in a purple strapped knee-length nightgown. I tried to speak to her about it, but it didn't go well. We started arguing and I ended up telling her to stop leaving her room when she's wearing stuff like that, and she argued that there was nothing wrong with what she was wearing. I told her it's my home and she's a guest and should just respect my request, but she responded saying that just because she lives in my house does not mean that I have the right to control what she wears, then stormed off to her room. Am I the for not letting my son's friend stay for Thanksgiving? I promised my son he could have his friend visit from out of town. I share custody with my ex-wife, so he splits his time between our cities and stay for Thanksgiving until school break was over. However, I started to notice some suspicious behavior. Hi, handsome, as a greeting when they were FaceTiming, calling him bub. Even my son's laugh when talking to him is different. I decided to take a look at my son's phone. The very first thing I see in their messages is a selfie of the friend shirtless in bed. I knew for sure then. I told my son his friend couldn't come for Thanksgiving and explained why. His brother can't have his girlfriend over, he can't have his boyfriend over. Everyone is acting like I'm in the wrong for breaking the promise though.
Storytime about how I woke up to my best friend having a seizure. A little background information. So my close friend invited me over to his house to spend the night, and we're gonna call him Jay. Well, Jay and I got to his house and his parents were really strict, so he had to sneak me in. So he told me to wait by the garage. And as soon as he opens the front door to his house, I hear his parents screaming. So he's inside fighting with his parents. I'm outside freezing my ass off. So an hour later, he comes out to get me, walks me through the garage, and I have to hide in this crawl space. So while I'm hiding in this crawl space, him and his parents are still arguing. And his parents walk past where I was like 5 times. So his mom gets in the car and leaves. She said she was going to kill herself. His dad comes into the garage, starts crying. I literally witnessed him have a mental fucking breakdown. Then his mom came back, said that she hated everybody. So then Jay purposely bangs his head off of the kitchen table 2 times. So when he came into the garage to get me, he had an ice pack on his head. Then we snuck up to his room like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, he rushes me up to his room because his dad was in the basement and his mom left again, threatening to kill herself again. And while we're upstairs, he starts taking dabs. And we're up for a little bit and then we go to sleep. So at like 8 in the morning, we both wake up. He's on his phone, I'm on my phone. We're not facing each other. And then all of a sudden, I feel the bed start to shake like a lot. So I turn over and this kid is having a full-blown fucking seizure. Like he's foaming at the mouth. His eyes are literally rolling in the back of his fucking head. So I get up and roll him over onto his side because I didn't want him to start choking. And I'm fucking freaking out and don't know what to do because I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. And he's like making all these types of noises. So I go and I run down the hallway. I try to find his parents' room. And I open the door and have to wake them up dead out of their sleep. And I was like, your son's having a seizure. So his mom runs over to the room, and his dad's like, well, who the fuck are you? And why the fuck are you in my house? And I was like, your son told me that I could stay the night last night. Oh, like for part 3. Part 3. So like I said, his dad's like interrogating me right now. So they call an ambulance, his son leaves in the ambulance, they didn't go with him, and his dad's like, you're never allowed in this fucking house again. And then he asked me, did he take anything last night? And I'm like, he did dabs, but like, I didn't do anything because I don't do that stuff. So he goes over to where all of his dab stuff is and starts throwing the glass pieces in the garbage, making sure that he fucking breaks them all. And his mom comes over to me to comfort me because I'm literally like fucking crying because this kid almost died right next to me. And she's like, it's okay, sweetie, like this happens to him a lot. But I felt so uncomfortable because he was like making it seem like it was my fault. So I hurry up and call my mom, and my mom doesn't get there till like 30 minutes because their house is a little bit further away. And for all of you wondering what happened to him, I don't know because this happened this morning. Story time about my worst trip off LSD. So one of the kids in my friend group was about to leave for Arizona, and we would always talk about how we need to trip together before he leaves. And anytime that I would trip off acid, I would go to my one plug. Well, he ran out, so we had to go to somebody else. And I've never tried this kid's stuff before, but I just said fuck it, YOLO, which should not have been my motto at the time. But it was. So that night, we're in the car, and one of our friends is driving because he's sober, obviously. And before I put the tab on my tongue, I started to get really nervous. And I have never felt like that before I've taken acid. But I kind of just said fuck it, and I put it on my tongue. So we go pick up 2 more people that I'm not really close with. So then we make our way over to our other friend's apartment. And I'm kind of feeling it, but not really. But then as soon as we walk into that apartment, I start tripping balls. And you know, everything was going good. But then my dumb ass decided to look in the fucking mirror. And as soon as I look in the mirror, I see myself smile back at me, like for part 2. Okay, part 2. So like I said, I look in the mirror and I see myself smiling back at me. And that's whenever everything went south so quick. I sat on the bed, tried to pull myself together because I didn't want to make a fucking scene in front of everybody. But then I got caught in this fucking loop. And if you don't know what the loop is, then I'm going to tell you what it is. It's basically where you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then I started looking around at everybody and it looked like their faces were melting. One of my friends got up off his chair, walked to the other side of the room, and I watched him do that. But when I looked back over at the fucking chair, he was still sitting there. So I looked at my one friend that was sober, who I was actually really close with, and I think he saw the look in my eye and he was like, do you want to leave now? And I just shook my head, yeah, like I could not deal with that shit anymore. So we go to his car and then we drive to my boyfriend's house. Because I could not go home. I would have got crucified. Well, we get in the house and as soon as his mom sees me, she knows that something's wrong. Like for part 3.
Okay, part 3. So like I said, I walked in and she knew that something was wrong with me right away. Because she was like, oh, I have a letter from your boyfriend. And usually I would run up, grab it, read it really quickly. Because I would only get like 1 letter a week. But instead I ran downstairs because her face was fucking melting. So 5 minutes later, she has to come downstairs and help me get dressed into my pajamas because I forgot how to dress myself. I didn't want to be left alone that night, so my friend stayed in the basement with me. So he went and tried to go to sleep. But he couldn't because I was watching Butterfly Effect for 8 hours straight. Like, that was the only thing that could calm me down. But I still don't even know all the freaking words to it, which is weird. Like, he would try to change the video and somehow I end up back to Butterfly Effect. And then he tried to kiss me. So he left the next morning because he had to go to work, which was at like 11 a.m. And I took this tab at 8 p.m. the day before. So I was getting texts like, where are you? You're supposed to be home now. So I had to go home and act normal in front of everybody while I'm still tripping balls. And I also got grounded for coming home late because I could not come home at the right time because I was tripping so hard. And this lasted for about 24 hours.
Am I the asshole for not buying more lemonade for my pregnant wife? My wife and I are from the UK, but fairly recently visited Disney with our 5-year-old. Whilst out there, my wife developed a taste for Minute Maid lemonade. Pink, not regular. On our way back from our holiday, she stopped by a shop in the airport and she brought several. On to today, my sister's visiting and spotted the drink in the fridge, asked to have it, and I recall my wife having a few and finding a website to buy more since they don't sell it in the UK, so I said yes. But my wife got home and had a craving, but apparently the bottle I'd given my sister was the last one. I apologized. She asked if she'd replace it, plus a few, since she's pregnant and craving it, and I said no, because it's high in sugar and also expensive. We're on baby number 2. She wants to take our child back to Disney next year and go to the other parks like we did this year. We're saving where we can. That includes little purchases like this.